Okay, class, this is chapter 11. This is the first PowerPoint of chapter 11, which will cover pages 513 to 526. I would hope that you go back and make sure you go into Edmodo and pull the chapter off and read the chapter as a background to these PowerPoints. Pastoralists were less productive than settled agriculturalists, resulting in the smaller populations that required larger expanses of land. They specialized in making a living off unproductive land. These grasslands could not sustain humans, but they could sustain their herds of animals. Thus, the pastoralists lived off the meat, milk, and blood rather than the grains. With low population density and relatively simple social structures, these societies enjoyed much greater social equality than their settled neighbors. Women engaged in most of the same tasks as men, and in terms of raising the herd and riding. While they were a mobile population that lived off their animals, they still needed products of settled societies. Thus, even though they might disdain the agriculturalists, they were frequently in conduct with them and exchanged their animals' products for the manufactured goods of the towns and cities. Without urban centers, it was difficult to sustain a state system. A few charismatic individuals, such as Genghis Khan, who we will talk about later, could forge alliances, but the strength of the union was dependent upon the wealth coming in and would fall apart when their economic fortunes turned. Make sure that you also read pages 514 through 521, which is not covered in this PowerPoint, but you're going to still be responsible for it. Now, we want to think about pastoralists as a whole throughout all of history and some of the things that they have in common. First of all, they often traded with their agricultural neighbors. They wanted food, manufactured products, and luxury items. And this desire for goods sometimes caused the creation of larger tribal confederations or nomadic states that could more effectively deal with larger civilizations. Remember, the pastoralists were, like we said before, people who moved from place to place. They were almost nomadic, but they didn't raise the different crops and things like that. That's why they interacted with the agriculturalists. As far as military interactions, the nomadic states had military advantages, such as they had horseback riding skills and hunting skills. The entire male population and many female trained in these military type of skills. And they used their militaries to extract wealth from the larger civilizations, sometimes through raiding, sometimes through trading, and sometimes through extortion. As far as cultural interactions were concerned, many of those pastoralists became familiar with and experiment with the other foreigners. They experimented with those religions and philosophies of others. They took on some of the clothing and hairstyles. They also took on some of the languages. They took on some of those political and social ideas. Understand that the Mongol Empire was the largest land-based empire in world history. You see on the map how far the empire extended, really going from the Pacific Ocean all the way over to the Black Sea, Mediterranean area. Took over some of the Middle East. This is the Mongol Empire at its height, and we'll break down and how it goes into each one of these different territories. Like we said, it stretched from the Pacific to coast to Asia and Eastern Europe, and it brought the major civilizations of Eurasia, which included Europe, China, and the Islamic world, together under one empire and into more direct contact than ever before. Also about the Mongol Empire. One of the major contributions of the Mongol Empire was they facilitated the worldwide networks of exchange and communication. When the empire was at its height, they controlled the whole Silk Road. So understand that they pretty much took over all of that trade. They didn't have a real cultural impact, and they didn't spread any major religion. They also did not spread their language or their culture. Now we're going to talk about Temujin, or Genghis Khan as we know him. He lived from 1162 to 1227. After his father was murdered, his resourceful mother led an immediate family through a marginal existence. But as he won a series of battles and forged alliances between loyalty and not kinship, Temujin steadily built up a powerful force. In this process, he gained a reputation for destroying his enemies, but rewarding those loyal to him. He also incorporated warriors from defeated tribes into his army. In 1206, a tribal assembly made him the great leader and gave him the title Genghis Khan. And this title means, as you see on the screen, universal or supreme ruler. There were two major regions for the Mongol expansion under Genghis Khan. First of all, the newly united Mongols needed a common task, or else they would fragment and fall apart. And secondly, he needed external resources which to reward his followers. So Genghis Khan, bringing that Mongol nation together, made them a powerful force. And his first goal was to invade China. To build a more powerful but also hold the Mongol alliance together, he started a series of expansionist wars, eventually conquering China and Central Asia. The empire was only checked in Eastern Europe, the Levant, which were the jungles of Southeast Asia, and the Sea of Japan. He set in motion the building of the world's largest land-based empire, and it was run by a population of only 1 million people. Like the Romans, but growing much bigger and faster, the Mongols created objectives, strategy, and ideology as they expanded. They were only checked when they turned around in Eastern Europe, and they were defeated in the Levant and the jungles of Southeast Asia, or hit by typhoons when invading Japan. The Mongols were lucky in that both the Chinese and Arab empires were weak and divided condition when they attacked. They also succeeded by organizing a superior army with a clear command and control structure. The army faced severe discipline, including the death penalty for desertion, but loyalty was greatly rewarded. Genghis Khan had great charisma, eating and fighting with his troops. The Mongol people also became very wealthy from the loot of the empire. The Mongols made good use of conquered people who had skills such as artisans and technicians. He made the people serve as laborers, in which they built roads, bridges, and carried other supplies. When attacking or taking revenge against an assault, the Mongol army was ruthless and engaged in a huge massacres and enslavement of women and children. This had a clear psychological impact on cities faced with a coming Mongol horde. It was also said that Genghis Khan told the people that he would send a word out to the people they were about to attack, and he said, either you resist and live, you resist and die, or you let us take it over and you live. Despite their ruthlessness in battle, the Mongols showed excellent administrative skills after their conquest. With a system of riders for communication and well-organized taxation, the Mongol Empire had the resources and infrastructure to govern itself. Also, one of the main people during this time was Marco Polo. He was the merchant from Venice, and he traveled through most of through the Mongol Empire for almost 3 decades. He wrote a lot of the things that he saw. He was kind of like when we talked about Ibn Battuta, who traveled the area in Africa and in Europe and those type of things. He was kind of the same way. And so he kept a diary of everything he encountered, and he learned about the way in which Europeans learned about the East. Recognizing the value of a vibrant economy, the Mongols ensured profit and safe conduct for the merchants. With no interest in religious imperialism, the Mongols tolerated various religions and even improved the conditions of some minorities, such as the Christians. So you see the decision-making, they had decision-making posts. The Chinese and Muslim officials held many advisory and lower-level positions. And this is a picture of the Mongol capital at Karakorum. This is going to conclude the first part of Chapter 11. Make sure you understand that there are going to be some questions that follow. And make sure you're taking care of your guided reading worksheet. And like I said before, make sure you're going back and reading this portion of the chapter just to supplement what you've heard or what the notes that you've been taking from this PowerPoint.